Hello, welcome back to Zekism. Hope you're doing well wherever you are. Had a little break from video production. Life just takes over. But nevertheless, we had to come back for this because Paramount, allegedly, this is coming to you via Empire, but everyone's reporting on it now. Netflix has pulled out of the deal or whether they've pulled out or whether they just can't afford the renewed bid from Paramount. Paramount is set to win the Warner Brothers bid in a shock twist as Netflix backs out of the deal. Like I said, it's coming to you from Empire. What is Hollywood without a dramatic twist ending, eh? Scarcely 2 months ago, we brought you news that Netflix had confirmed its acquisition of Warner Brothers in a deal believed to be worth an eye-watering $82 billion. We all got the email from Ted Sarandos, a streamer, confirming all the juicy new content. I even reported on it as well. Bound for the Big Red N, all did our post-mortems for the future, or lack thereof, of cinema, and it was front and centre as Empire's biggest movie news of 2025. But now, following weeks of renewed bids and deal-sweetening manoeuvres from David Ellison's Paramount Skydance, Netflix has given the WB the old "that's all, folks," and backed out of its deal to buy the iconic movie studio, paving the way for Paramount to buy instead. Now, before I get to sort of editorialise and give my own take on the situation, essentially, this is somewhat political. You can't get away from it. Netflix seemingly had the deal in the bag. They were doing a lap of honour really in October when I did my video on it. And then Paramount, I think, started to apply pressure. Not only did they produce an improved bid on Netflix's offering, which then, if you're a shareholder or if you're a Netflix aligned, shall we say, from the stock perspective, you're going, how are you not accepting the higher bid rather than just taking the Netflix one, which is interesting. So, and you can't get away from the fact the Ellisons, friends of the president, the current sitting president in America, were kicking up a fuss. This obviously the deal had to go through FCC approval. Or governing body approval in America, essentially a presidential seal of approval through the departments over there. And Netflix, in the last few weeks, was in the houses of Congress in America to defend the deal and their proposals, and obviously their suspect content was brought up as much as anything else, and saying, well, why is this deal good for the future of entertainment in America, or sort of just business, sort of like a without sort of making the market smaller. And also, you can't get away from the fact that Netflix does not give a monkeys about cinema releases whatsoever. So it's hard to get away from that sort of logic. But anyway, nevertheless, we'll continue. News of Netflix's bailing on their Warner Brothers purchase came via a joint statement from the company's co-CEOs Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters this evening. The transaction we negotiated would have created shareholder value with a clear path to regulatory approval. However, we've always been disciplined, and at the price required to match Paramount Skydance's latest offer, the deal is no longer financially attractive. So we are declining to match the Paramount Skydance bid, the duo said, adding further on, we believe we would have been strong stewards of Warner Brothers' iconic brands, and that our deal would have strengthened the entertainment industry and preserved and created more production jobs in the US. But this transaction was always a nice to have at the right price, not a must have at any price. Yes, well, that's we can debate that. While Warner Brothers represented a nice to have for Sarandos and Co., however, Netflix's opponent in arguably the biggest and potentially most consequential bidding war this industry has ever seen definitely ended up opting for the must have approach in the end. At this point in the proceedings, Netflix's original $28 per share offer for Warner Brothers Discovery has been beaten healthily by Ellison, and Paramount's $31 per share price and assorted additional cash benefits for WBD head honcho David Zaslav. Paramount buying his company is a win for Warner Brothers and for its shareholders. It definitely is a big win. You could argue, but once our board votes to adopt the Paramount merger agreement, it will create tremendous value for our shareholders. We are excited about the potential of a combined Paramount Skydance and Warner Brothers Discovery, and can't wait to get started working together, telling the stories that move the world. Elephant in the room here is Paramount Plus, because currently HBO Max, which is about to be rolled out, by the way, in the UK. So I don't know what happens there. We already have Paramount Plus here in the UK, but we don't have HBO Max. We never have had it either. So they were just about to start rolling it out. So I don't know what happens there, whether there is a merging of the two eventually, or what's going to happen there, whether they pause the release. I don't know. I know it's available in multiple territories across the world, but interesting. Anyway. Paramount CEO David Ellison, whose company stands to gain DC Comics, Harry Potter, Hanna-Barbera, Game of Thrones, HBO Max, New Line, and much, much, much more. Besides, is also, of course, very happy with the latest turn in the Warner Brothers sales saga. We are pleased. WBD's board has unanimously affirmed the superior value of our offer, which delivers to WBD shareholders superior value, certainty, and speed to closing, said Ellison in a statement shortly before Netflix backed out of its original deal. What all of this will eventually come to mean for us, the cinema goers and film and TV lovers, is unclear at this precise moment, as we've already seen. Even when the ink has dried, that doesn't necessarily mean a deal was truly done. Suffice to say, however, that the times they are a-changing in Hollywood, and this certainly won't be the last you hear about this deal and its potential ramifications in the weeks and months ahead. As ever, though, we'll bring you everything you need to know as this story continues to develop. So that's the end of the article. Let's digest this for a second. So, we already mentioned the political influence, potential influences that were going on here. The fact that Netflix were not going to get approval for this deal for market reasons, allegedly, but we can sort of read the fact that there is a right-wing leaning government currently in place in America. They're sort of running things when it comes to jurisdiction with approval of not so much content, but sort of, certainly the business transactions in the entertainment industry in America, which isn't doing too well at the moment post-pandemic, post-strikes, post-economy. There's a lot of reasons as to why the entertainment industry in America is not doing too well. We already touched upon last year a few occasions where obviously productions were moving internationally, such as here in the UK, to basically get cheaper production costs. Essentially, there was financial incentives for them to come over here, for example, tax breaks, what have you, to film productions elsewhere. And I think, all of that goes into the fact that the entertainment industry in America is on its knees. Hence, Warner Brothers, not just had a buyer 3 or 4 years ago when Discovery bought it. It is the case that Warner Brothers, which would have been a self-sufficient studio had it not been for, circumstances. Warner Brothers had a really good year last year, for example. There wasn't a necessity to buy it. It just so happens that they're in a position where they can be bought, and they have been bought, or in the process of being bought, should I say. Netflix thought they had the deal wrapped up, of course, and they would have merely just been boosting their content on the platform. If I'm to be cynical, they don't really care about it. They don't care at all about cinema releases. They do it because they're asked to by the creators, and there may be some sort of loose, let's be honest, Oscar voting sort of rationale. The slight stipulation that cinema releases have to be incorporated into a release strategy of a film to be considered for Oscar contention. And I still think there's some hesitancy in Hollywood to reward Netflix films. There is still a stigma attached to them when you see the awards contenders year on year. You can't ignore the Netflix ones because they're good, but at the same time there is a hesitancy to reward that level of sort of cinema avoidance. And so Netflix is trying to combat that by basically being the only game in town. Look, they're a behemoth corporation. They are a streaming service, first and foremost, not a film studio. And so you have to, that's their business model. That is what they do. But I think it's a sign of the times where audiences aren't going out to the cinema as much as I would love them to. I'm a diehard cinema fan, so I'm sad to think that in my lifetime cinemas might not be around in the future, which is that'll be a really sad day for me. But I think, if I play devil's advocate, I think this probably is the best deal for cinema lovers, because it at least means that there is a stay of execution for cinemas, because Paramount is a film studio first and foremost, and they will continue to release films in cinemas, prolonging the lifeline of cinemas even further for however long that might be. Caveat to that would be there is one less film studio now. the incorporation of a film. We saw it when Disney bought Fox. That's one less player on the market. That's one less production studio commissioning projects potentially, and that's one less avenue of work for people who work on film sets, people who work on productions. That's writers, that's screenwriters, and that's people on camera, obviously. That also mainly is the people who work on physical sets. The camera hands. Anyone who works on a film set, caterers, just got less work. All of that stuff goes into it. So it's a real tough juggling act morally, and you can't help but be selfish. You go, what does this mean for me? Well, I'm a cinema lover. It means that there is a stay of execution for cinemas. Great. There is one less avenue for people to work, so it's not all great. So it's an interesting one to sort of look at from a distance and sort of go, well, what does this mean? Like I said, I think I've laid out the negatives and the positives of whatever the deal signifies for the industry. I'm not crying too much for Netflix, to be perfectly honest. You can probably tell. Tone of voice. I think there was a real. You can see it in the statement they released anyway. There's a little bit of arrogance to it. But I think it's, this is the deal they've gone with. I think it's financially, it's the one that makes the most sense. So if you can't really argue with the finances involved, if you're a Netflix shareholder, sorry, not Netflix, sorry, if you're a Warner Brothers shareholder, if you're a Netflix shareholder, I don't know what this means for you. The stock has been affected by this protracted potential deal as well from a Netflix point of view. So they'll recover because it's Netflix. They'll recover. They'll move on. And they'll continue to, continue their release strategy. For what it means for streaming services, I would imagine there's some sort of merging going on. I think what they'll do is this is what I would do, maybe just shove it all under the HBO bandwagon and dump it on Paramount Plus. You can't really surely operate two separate streaming services. That whole business model doesn't make sense. So there'll be a folding in. I think Paramount Plus just became a little bit more attractive for us, potentially. In the international and in America, you've all got them all anyway. So the merging would naturally mean, maybe an increasing of Paramount Plus, but you lose HBO Max because it's getting folded in. I don't know. There you go. Let me know what you think. This is really big news from a Hollywood perspective, or an entertainment industry perspective. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Please leave a like, subscribe on the channel. Really, really pleased and really happy to be back. And thank you anyone for indulging in the content. I really appreciate it. If you could leave a like or subscribe, that really does help the channel. So thank you very, very much. I'll speak to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.